I can't do forced vassalization on Brabant because they're too big. But if I take Antwerp, then I probably can do a forced vassalization for the other part. That's more tempting. Although he's the wrong religion. Actually, good point. Wrong religion. You need to change. And vassals. Whoa! Shenrir! Thank you very much for the raid. Hello, hello, hello. Crazy. What's going on here then? We'll talk about that in just a moment. I'm going to pour myself some tea, because I have a feeling I'm going to need it. Man the defences! Launch the longboats! We'll catch them at sea! Raid the raiders! They'll never expect it. Launch the longboats, people! Come on! Let's fend these guys off. Oh my, indeed. Howdy. Hey, how you doing? Oof. How goes the Mordred? Well, we have had a bit of a tumultuous game so far. So we are currently the Queen of Frisia. So we own this bit. We just fought a war to take Flanders, but we've had a bit of a mare. I'll be honest. So we started in the 867 start date as the County of Gotland. That's this little guy up here. We were Vikings. From the County of Gotland, we then spread out and took the Earldom of Holland, moving over here. We built up Holland, then decided to start expanding outwards. We took more of the Dutch territories, and eventually came face to face with France. At that point, France was a little less messy than this, because France was in fact West Francia, owned the entirety of France and also northern Italy. They had about 7,000 standing army, which in the 800s was a lot. But they went to war with one of my allies, who at the time owned Suffolk. And this tiny little province of Suffolk turned out to be France's undoing, because we captured their king. There was a series of naval invasions from the West Francians here. We fought them on the shores and beat them, capturing the king in the process. We then took the king and forced him to convert to Österu. This was after we had reformed our religion, so we are reformed Österu at the moment. There are still a couple of unreformed people around, but not a huge number. So he converted. We then immediately, and I kind of did this in the wrong order, declared war on them for Flanders, which is one of the wealthiest parts of the game. There's just a huge development. It is 5 counties in a single Earldom, which is a lot, and lots of baronies in there as well. It's really, really good. So we were fighting West Francia for that. Then the Pope called the First Crusade against West Francia. So their situation just went from really, really good to kind of awful. They owned this part of Italy, what is now Ancona, or Romagna area, and the papacy declared war. We eventually peaced out for Flanders, flipped sides because they were Österu, tried to defend them, but there were just too many. The Catholics at this point were still really, really strong. So the Pope won the fight, but West Francia was still, for the most part, Österu. Until it wasn't, and there's just been this series of catastrophic civil wars just happening throughout France, leaving behind this mess. So it's been, in turn, Österu, Waldesian, Catholic, Old Österu. I think it might even have been Orthodox at one point. I'm not entirely sure where these bits of Orthodox have come from. And, hilariously, Suaminusco. So yeah, Österu has been winning. Huzzah! Österu has taken more and more territories, so we have been slowly winning there, but it's not been a good process for the French. It really hasn't. Meanwhile, we... what did we do after that? We continued expanding over here. Right. There was the Kingdom of Gardariki, which actually still exists in this one province here. So the Kingdom of Gardariki was Norse. The only problem was they were the wrong type of Norse. These were still old-fashioned heathens which had refused to embrace the new, more mighty, new Österu form. So we attacked the kingdom, took the kingdom, and because of the Gavelkind nature of our government, it split on inheritance, which was actually intended. We were fine with that. But the problem was we'd weakened their military so much that the Jewish hordes, which sit out here, and this Cabarite is Jewish, they were very dangerous, and they've slowly been moving in and just taking out the Norse Russians. And that's been a problem, because we had one particularly tumultuous succession which led from us going from the Kingdom of Frisia and the Kingdom of Gardariki to owning this one province. That's all we had. It was like the mightiest fall from grace I've ever seen. It was horrific, and I was really tempted to reload, but I didn't. And moments later, it turned out that this one county, the former King of Frisia and Gardariki, stood to inherit Sweden. Sweden attacked Gardariki, took it over, attacked Frisia, took it over, and suddenly I stood to gain 3 different crowns. And we did. We took all 3. I then set up the succession, had one of my daughters rule over Frisia, one of my daughters rule over Gardariki, and one of my sons rule over Sweden. 2 weeks later, that guy died. So suddenly the kingdom was fractured again into 3. But the cool thing about that is, if we switch over to the houses, we are the Mordlings, and you will notice that there is a tiny little holdout of the original Mordlings over here. Then we also have the Mordling Viangis. This is the cadet house I established while I was up there. Viangi mostly just to remind myself how bad things could go very, very quickly. But we also have Horn, that's a Mordling. Svarti, that's a Mordling. I think there might be another one as well, but I forget who. But basic... Oh, here we go. Mordling, Dikirk. So the Mordlings actually control the majority of Northern Europe. This is our dynasty. So even though we kept on fragmenting, our dynasty is super freaking powerful. They're fantastic. So even though, like, the realm management part hasn't quite gone to plan, the dynastic part definitely has. And because we have so many independent kingdoms, we gain a lot of renown. So we've been working on our legacies. We are now level 3 legal, we're level 1 warfare, we're level 1 kin. And up till very recently, it was actually the AI that was in charge. So we were in charge at first. We established this law one because, and we'll talk about this in a minute, our faith is very, very legalistic. So, and also our first rulers, the first 2, I think, were both just. So we have a big, big thing about just rulers. So we went law. Then after that, the AI took over because Sweden was just so much bigger than we were, and they went down the law thing. Then recently, with our cadet house, we've taken over it again. We grabbed warfare and kin, because that's what we've been focusing. And so yeah, that's cool. Then we also have the faith, the Erstru. This is how we reformed it. So we have Unrelenting Faith, which basically replaced the Warmongers. This increases the prowess of every member or every adherent of the faith, which means that our champions are ridiculously strong. And Faith Hostility Advantage means when we're fighting against people not of our faith, we get a bonus. Legalism. This means that rulers who are virtuous or just have a much easier time ruling their territories, whereas if they are sinful or arbitrary, they have a much harder time ruling their kingdoms. And then we also have ritual celebrations, which means we love a piss-up. So feasts now earn piety, vassals are more likely to attend, and we get bonus opinion from feasts. And feasts are just a really good way of, like, knitting the kingdom together. So we haven't had that many, like, fragments within the kingdom, but with the Gavelkind, that's been our problem. It's all about the inheritances. And we're also equal rights, which means that men and women can both serve as soldiers. So we've had some really, really strong shield maidens in our front lines, especially when combined with the Unrelenting Faith. Then on top of that, we have the warfare from our house dynasty. So we had, let's see if that's still true, our son, 2 years old, with a prowess of 8. That's more than most adults. He's 2. And each level of prowess, I think, is equal to 20 levies. So he can beat up a lot of levies, even though he's a 2-year-old. Like, our house are mean fighters. But at the moment, we have got Queen Freya on the throne. She has actually been a really, really good ruler. This was after the disaster of... I keep forgetting the name of the province. This place. She inherited Frisia. Her brother inherited Sweden. Her sister inherited Gardariki. Gardariki, meanwhile, has been wiped out, unfortunately. And we do mean to probably go over there and crusade for it back again. But in the meantime, she's in charge. She is super-duper diplomatic. Everybody absolutely loves her. She's had loads of kids, and we are going to be soon working on deciding who our dynasty is going to... or who's going to be next in line for the throne. Because none of the kids are really, like, standing out to replace that, but we'll work it out. The other thing, you'll remember when we... So, we've had a problem. Namely that the Viking nations start out tribal, and it is very, 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 very difficult to become feudal. And you need to be feudal to do all of the cool stuff in the game, basically. And also, all of the territories of the Low Countries start the game as feudal, and you can't actually build feudal buildings if you are tribal. So my vassals were feudal, my territories were feudal, I was tribal. So for about 200 years, I couldn't build anything here. But the Norse culture, I'm in charge of it and have been for a while, so I was able to sort out the fascinations. We got most of the fascinations for the tribal era. You require every single one of these to reform into feudal. We were 4 months away. 4 months. Owning all of this. From getting feudalism. When this happened. It was so painful. 4 months away from adopting feudalism, and we were relegated to deepest, darkest Russia. Oh, it was painful. It was so painful. But we did eventually get Frisia back. We are now feudal. We are slowly but surely building our economy up. Actually, there's nothing slow about it. We're actually pretty quickly building the economy up because it's just such a wealthy area. And we should be able to catch up with our neighbours soon enough. We're going to be fighting Brabant soon because I want to capture Brabant from them. And then possibly vassalising the remnants after that. And then after this, we'll probably try to put some kind of expedition together to retake Russia for the glory of Ersteru. However, the objective here is to get to India. We want to get to India or to Burma. Problem is, we've been stuck in Frisia for about 4 generations, so we haven't made much progress. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster. It's been a really good game so far. I've heard that adopting feudalism seriously gimps you for a while in terms of levies and income. Is it as bad as I've read? I wouldn't know. Because I remember in TK2 there was a bit of a cliff edge as soon as you switched from tribal to feudal. I think there is still a similar situation, but it's not as bad. The big problem is your men-at-arms. You're just not going to be able to afford them. But just disband them. The problem might also be in terms of your holdings. But because I just couldn't build my holdings up, I had saved up like 1,500 ducats, and I would have been able to just immediately just build loads of buildings, except for the fact that I got relegated to deepest, darkest Russia, and I had to spend a bunch of money making sure I survived. So by the time we actually got back to Frisia, I think we arrived here with like 500 instead of the 1,000 plus, which I'd saved up, so we weren't able to build as quickly as I would have liked. But that was one of the advantages. We had loads and loads of money, so we were able to just use mercenaries left, right, and centre. Whereas now it's a bit slower. CK3 really nailed the rise and fall of dynasties. Yeah, it did. Yeah, it really, really did. It absolutely nailed that. Anyway, I know that this has been ticking over for a while, so I'm going to say... CC Summon 1, The Wily Wizard, Blood Die Nasty, Lervosity, D. Evianesco, Aramantium, G. Tizzle, Casimiria, Barrymore, Crimson King, Goddess Love, Turnips in Heat, Rodzeth, Neo Kruger, Matter and Stuff, Blue Death Star, Burgess, Khaki, Lergionins, Wubberjack, Asahade, and Tribby. Thank you very much for the follows. Welcome to the channel. Great to have you here with us this evening. Mastani, thank you very much for the raid. Welcome to Mastani's viewers. Glad to have you with us at the moment. And Mastani, thank you very much for gifting a sub to Shenrir. Much appreciate that as well. And then Cookie coming in with a new subscription as well. Welcome to the channel. Are there still Maudlings in North Africa and Black Sea? No. So North Africa got attacked by Basharids, and I just immediately capitulated and said you can have it. And North Sea went to Estonia, which is now known as Brabant, and I think they lost it at some point. So we are now actually consolidated to just this. Also, our Estonian territories are gone. So at one point, I will say that Frisia, Estonia, Denmark, Sweden, and Gardariki were all Maudlings. We had 5 dynasties. 5 5 kingdoms. Johnny Long Torso, an actual coop, Saifang, and Bold Duck, thank you very much for the follows. Welcome to the channel. Yeah, Poland's done well because of the chaos that has been sparked by the rise of the Ersteru and the fall of Catholicism, frankly. Like, they have really struggled. With the exception of Insula. Insula's done well. Poland has been allowed to expand, and Poland's doing well. So is Bavaria. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when the Mongols arrive. I know we're still like 200 years away from that, but it will happen. And it's definitely going to have some implications. Although actually I would say that Eastern Europe is more organized than Western Europe at this point. And yeah, Byzantium is looking strong. Like, they've been fairly stagnant. They haven't really done much, but also they haven't lost much. Unlike, say, France. And I am a little bit concerned about the state of Iberia right now, because the Wuwaladi are definitely pushing north. So my next step, once we've tried to re-secure Gardariki if we can, is probably to try and get an outpost in Iberia and see what we can do from there. Another thing I should mention is we've actually had multiple people reforming their religion. So down here in the south, Oresian, that's reformed. Waki, that's reformed. And then Ersteru, that's also reformed. But these two, AI. I don't think I've ever seen the AI actually successfully reform a religion. And then the other big success story, and this one also bears highlighting because it's impressive in just how unlikely it was. Insula. At one point, the last Insular province and the last Irish province was this one, Athlone, also known as Meath. Everything else was owned by either the English or the Vikings, and this was the last stand of Ireland. Ireland exists, Munster exists, and basically the entirety of the British Isles is insular now. Like, that is such a great comeback, it's crazy. And they've successfully pushed the Vikings out. We owned the majority of Britain. With the exception of Scotland. Scotland's remained proudly independent throughout, and has actually been pretty powerful throughout. Did they take random tenants, or how's that work? That's actually a good question. I'm not sure. No, I don't know. No, I'm pretty sure that these are actually identical. So we did see the precursor, which is Uraba. Can I click on that? No, I can't. I don't think there's any of the precursors left to show you. Yes, there is. It's right there. So this is the precursor religion, this is the new one. They are actually identical. Which, if you as a player tried to do that, it's an illegal move. You've got to change at least one doctrine or one tenet, but these are actually just identical. There's no difference. Which is why I kind of wonder if this was done by event. And then over here, Waki. We do have Old Waki as well. They are identical too. So no, the AI doesn't actually change anything. They just reform, so they have conversion resistance. Culture view, yes. So this is the cultural view at the moment. Oh, one other thing I should point out. I have very lightly modded this game. Mainly with the way that Norse works. So there is an event which occurs at some point, which is when Norwegian, Swedish and Danish appear, which will convert Norse nations to those instead. Unfortunately, I, in the Netherlands, with no Scandinavian territories, was suddenly switched Swedish. For no reason. So we edited the event, which basically said, you're going to be switched, to, do you want to switch? Here's a choice. And I went, no, I don't want to switch. So we've stayed Norse. And Norse at this point is basically either Dutch or Irish. I would even argue that these Norse are descendants of the Irish Norse, and there is a little bit of a Norse enclave up here, but we've kept the old ways, whereas these guys haven't. We've evolved, we've progressed through time. We were, after all, the originator of Ersteru, but we're still Norse. That's a terrible event. Like, I really hope that Paradox changes that event, because it's awful. You've got to own either 80% of all of the Norse provinces when the event fires, which is arbitrary, or you flip. Except if you're in the British Isles, where you don't. Like, all the guys that didn't flip in the British Isles... Whoops, culture. They're not affected by the event. But if you're outside of the British Isles, basically, you are. So it's like, I'm in the Netherlands. Why the hell am I suddenly Sweden? No, I'm Norse, still. Because by that point, I'd basically wiped out the Dutch. In fact, the Dutch are gone. We've eradicated them. Sorry, Holland. Is Denmark my dynasty as well? Yep. Suddenly Sweden. Yeah, there were lots of jokes about Sweden's OP in chat when that happened. It's like, no! Just no! Anyway, I should probably actually play the game. So we've just taken over Frisia just before you guys joined us. We are planning to attack Brabant. We do have enough money for this. We were going to declare war. We were going to make this a holy war for Brabant. They're vastly inferior. And now, because we are at war, chat is probably getting used to this, but there is a tradition here. When the war horn sounds, we've got to put on our safety helmet. So, safety helmet is on. We can now raise the troops. Raise all. Go on speed 3 so we can do that. Courtier agrees to conversion. Good stuff. And our armies are now standing and ready to go. So we're going to go straight on to attack Brabant. Who's in command? At the moment this is Geldwin, who is our premier sieger. And I think I'd like to keep him in charge. Is that a solid helmet? Doesn't look plastic at all. No, this is solid. I don't know if you can hear that. Very metal. And it's also sodding heavy. So I don't want to wear it too often and too long. So it's definitely a motivator to make for slightly quicker battles. I was looking at the event and it's bugged. You're only supposed to flip if you're Denmark, Norway or Sweden, but if you're a player and you go Swedish, you're outside of Scandinavia. Ah. Which would explain why the Irish and the English Norse didn't switch. Alright, we're going to try and catch these guys. Come on, come on, come on, before they get away. Okay, they've been caught. They've been slowed down. Well done. Arnhem! Well done, Arnhem. Alright, so are you still the best man for this job? Or can we bring in somebody who's better at fightiness? Reduces defensive advantage. I don't think that's going to help. Cautious leader, I don't think it's going to help. Unyielding defender. That would mean that we lose less troops. You're not as good a commander, though. What I'd really like is Berengar to be in the fight, but unfortunately Berengar is leading another army somewhere else. Which is unfortunate. I bet he's actually here. No. So 2,900 against 2,000. We have no penalties. They get an 8% damage. Oh, I didn't notice the damage buff. Interesting. But we simply have higher numbers. Also, they do have pikemen. However, their pikemen are only 82% effective, because we do have armoured footmen. They have got light horsemen, who are fighting at full effectiveness, especially because we're in plains. And then also Lightfoot, who are modified to 73% effectiveness because of our archers. My armoured infantry are being completely negated by their 200 light infantry. Yeah, I don't like how effective Lightfoot are against heavy. That needs to change. My archers are being reduced to 79% efficiency by their horsemen. My Lightfoot aren't affected, and my light horses are reduced to 65 because of their spears. Yeah, at some point we probably should pick up spearmen, because the AI does like the cavalry. Doing some damage, and see them off. Boom. A glorious victory! So we lost 500, they lost 800. Our champions, this is the one I always check. Our 9 champions killed 300 men between them, whereas their 6 champions killed 90. This is part of the reason my armies are very mean, even without the gallant lifestyle, which makes them even meaner. Much, much, much meaner. Right, let's go and take their capital. Let's also get rid of these. So this is another mod I'm playing with, which increases the number of pop-ups you get. Sometimes it goes a bit bonkers, but it basically pulls out some of the really useful ones away from this menu where they're often hidden. Like, for example, you have children that could be educated. It's kind of an important one to know. Ooh, I can ask you for gold. I would like to do that. Yes, please. Loses me some piety, but that's okay, because we're fighting holy wars. Are we feudal now? Yep. So it's a tool of peace, that helm being heavy. You want peace as fast as possible to remove it. Yeah, basically. We also need a peace helmet. Sandrock, why do you always make me drink tea when I got the helmet on? I don't want to chip my mug. I'm saying that earnestly. Bold Duck, Ray Langviens, Neruthian, and Bioshin, thank you very much for the follows. Welcome to the channel. Alright, cool. Let's do this. Are you running to your capital? No, you're running past the capital. That's fine. We do have artillery here. Oh man, I'm really tempted to increase the number of catapults we have. They are kind of expensive though. Would add another 0.29 maintenance a month. I don't want to pay that. Not until I get my economy a little bit more robust. Speaking of economy, can we ransom some more? We can. Can we ransom the Duchess? No. We'll ransom away the kids though. Alright, so that's those two gone. Then we just need the Duchess, but she's worth 50, you're only going to pay me 14. We'll wait. I know that you've got a fairly decent economy because you've already paid me about 130 in ransoms. Prince Natsuto has been swayed. Good. Oh, we gained a Groom to Rule bonus. I didn't see what it was. So Natsuto is now fully on board. So next up, we need to get the Chancellor on board as well. Let's sway him. We are an awesome diplomat, so swaying is very effective. Running 6 trebs right now, and those castles just can't stand my sieges. Yeah, I can't wait to get better quality siege engines. Just using the mangonels is kind of slow. I want onagers, I want trebs. Not that far through yet, though. Okay, I kept on getting my eyes. Distracting! Alright, it has come to my attention that some of the local commoners are moving to Lille, the capital of my Chancellor, Count Jacques. Locals, newly settled or not, praising me can surely do no harm in the perception of me. No. I'm not going to pay extra money for extra opinion. We'll get you eventually anyway. Okay, so Brabant is back here. We'll take out this siege and then probably try to intercept them. I mean, we're at least taking the capital, which is good. Boom. And we took some captives, though I don't think anyone particularly important. Oh, hello. Large army. That's a very large army. Unfortunately for you, you have just disembarked. Which means that you will have the just disembarked penalties, if I can catch you. Do we have anybody that moves faster? I don't think so.